There was a version of myself that used to not care what people thought. And, I lived my life accordingly. As a solo traveller, as a free spirit, as someone who tried to grasp life and make the most of it on every turn. I looked for adventure and I looked for a challenge, and I definitely wasn't scared of change. I'm almost approaching my 20th year, folks, of living and working abroad. Now, that was never the plan, but that's the key here. There was never a plan, okay? When you're young, when you are full of adventure, when you have no responsibility, and when you are a free spirit, your plan in life is just to take a chance, right? Take a risk, a leap of faith almost, right? Just take the next step almost with your eyes closed, because for me, that was the real adventure. So the plan was to never be still working and living abroad at the age of 42. But considering next year will be my 20th year, I think I've done all right for myself. But I do sometimes miss that older version of me. And here's why. Back in the days, I had this motto for myself: live for the moment, right? Just don't make plans. Plans are made to be broken. Plans are for sensible people, right? Plans are for people that are grown up. At the age of 23, when I first left home to work abroad, I was pretty much still a kid in the most part. I was the youngest of three in a family growing up. And I took the risk of moving to Canada just as a way of challenging myself to get out of the norm, to break out of the bubble, right, of life that was setting me up for all these responsibilities coming. To get out of Scotland. Scotland's a beautiful country, but it's enough for me at 23. I've spent enough time there, so it's time to move on. Now, when you're young, like I said before, and you want to challenge yourself, then you really should put yourself in the most uncomfortable position. And for me, I was completely and utterly drawn to a life of solo travel at that time. As you all know from previous videos, I ended up living and moving to South Korea. I worked on a 1-year contract basis, and the reason that I chose these 1-year contracts was because it gave me the freedom to never be tied down, long term. Because again, I didn't have any plan in place. I was just looking to save some money. I enjoyed initially teaching. It was never my dream to teach. The truth is, it was for money, it was for experience, and South Korea was a great place to travel to different Asian countries as well. As we're only in this world one time, having no long-term commitments at that age for me was life. That's what it was all about. Sometimes after finishing my year contract here in South Korea, I would even go home. I would save up a whole bunch of money. I'd go home, visit the folks, and stay for like maybe a month and a half tops, and then move on to my next destination. So those were the days when I had no responsibilities and no ties, and those memories and those days do not leave my mind. Now, however, everything is about safety, stability, and supporting my family. Now that I'm a parent, I would never ever return and go back in time. And it's the best thing to ever happen to me in my life was to become a father. We all have responsibilities. We've got bills to pay, right? Instead of 1-year contracts, I'm now on 2-year contracts. That might not seem like a big deal for you folks, but for me to commit to 2-year contracts initially was something I would never do because it made me feel trapped. I've been at my current job for 6 years. Again, that's something I never did before. I've had many jobs in my life, many part-time jobs, many full-time jobs. And in South Korea, my longest employment was 4 years. And that was a battle for me to stay for 4 years because the school were happy with me. But the problem was I am always looking for a new challenge. And once I'm in a job for a certain period of time, I feel like I know everything. And once that initial interest and challenge of the job disappears, then for me it becomes pointless because then you're just working for the money. I'm not all about the money, everybody. I'm all about experience and challenge and trying to grow as a person. Again, the solo traveler, the free-spirited, the young version of me would never stay in the same job for 6 years. But now it's a little bit different. I don't only have myself to think about. Now I've got my wife and I've got my children. Right, so life changes, bills, responsibility, future, everything. The sensible thing to do. That's the key point of this video right now. That was never my style. I never lived life trying to do the sensible thing. I used to live life trying to do almost the opposite of that, the adventurous thing. And obviously when you go on an adventure, usually that adventure will be the opposite of sensible, because you're pushing yourself, you're doing things that most people don't do in their normal life. And I always try to take the most difficult path in life to challenge myself fully. And when you're trying to be sensible, you're not doing that. You're trying to keep yourself on probably the easiest path, right? To keep your life stable. And these days, my work life, social life balance is good. I spend a lot of time at home. I get a lot of free time in this job. It's not stressful. So right now, as a father and a husband, this makes sense. I want to say this though. One of the hardest things about being a parent for me is I put so much thought and care into my kids. I want to make them as happy as I can. And I feel like at this age in time, they're going through important days in their lives where I should support them rather than try to be a little bit selfish and go my way. Because no matter what I do, if I choose to go my way, my wife and kid have to follow me, right? I'm basically the main provider of money in the family. So what I do is important, but I put myself last, okay? When you're single, when you're young, you are responsible for you, and you always put yourself first. That's why at the start of this video today, I said I used to be the person that never cares what people thinks about me. And well, now I do. My family, I really, really do. And I would love to move to different cities here in South Korea, but I would also love to move to different countries and test myself. Different culture, different city, different country, different language, higher paid positions, different students, everything. But for me to do that, I have to upend my children's life. I have to change my wife's life. Everybody's going to pay the price just because I want to challenge myself. I don't think that's fair, and I don't think it's realistic to do that to my kids, especially at the age they're in. They've got a whole bunch of good friends. So I'm, in a sense, holding myself back for the benefit of my children. But I feel that is something that's good for them in the long run. So here's the question. Can I get this version of me back again? Is it possible, or is it too late? Is it possible to find the balance between security and freedom? You know what? I've got zero regrets in life. I don't regret anything I've done. Almost 20 years now living and working abroad. I've grown a lot as a person. I've expanded my mind. I've grown up pretty much abroad. But I do miss that free spirit, which I think is still inside me and is trying to escape almost every day. But I'm trying to control it, folks, I'm trying to keep it under control. And instead of doing my solo trips and trying for a new country every year, I'm taking my wife and my family, my kids, to different countries. I try and go on vacation at least once a year to a different country, different culture. Maybe that's me getting, my free spirit kind of fix. Maybe it's not about going back in time and trying to find who I was. Maybe it's about trying to find the future me. One who can still dream big, but also carry the responsibilities that come with being a father and a husband. So, there you have it. A nice little walk down memory lane. These days I'm just thinking of memories past and the wonderful experiences that I've had. And it's always good, everybody, to look back in time, because I often think to myself when I'm 70 years old, when I'm a 70-year-old Paul, sitting in his rocking chair, I don't know if I will be. Maybe I won't even be here. Maybe I won't reach 70 years old. But when I'm old and I'm looking back on my life, just like you will look back in your life, I hope that I and we can look back with no regrets, look back with a smile on our face, with happy memories that we never lose. And for me, that's what I have right now at 42 years old. So I feel like that's the kind of person I am. I feel like when I'm older, I'm going to have the same happy thoughts and no regrets. But the difference is now, as a father, as a husband, I have others to look after and others to be responsible for. So I will do and I will continue to do my best for them, but also for myself as well, because maybe I should try to put myself first sometimes. So there you have it. How about you? How do you feel about life? How do you feel about your younger self compared to your current self? How do you feel about your future self? Do you have any regrets in life? Have you traveled just like me? I want to say thank you all for your support. I'm really happy with this channel and I appreciate you stopping by. Take care of yourselves and I'll catch you on the next one. So long, everybody.